All right, it's 18 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock. It's a No Morning Show here on TTT. I am Natalee Legore. Now, schools have reopened, not for the first time, but probably with a little bit of difference. I think there might still be a little confusion as to who is out physically and who is still at home. But we have two students here with us to just share their experience and give us their feedback on what they think is happening and how they think it is happening. So let's welcome to the program this morning Rain Bowman, who is a Form 4 student at St. Joseph's Convent. Oh, you know my child is at St. Joseph Convent.
Really?
Yes, Tamara and Sarah Peters Charles.
Yes, that's actually my really great friend.
Oh my God, girl, we'll talk. And of course, Charlotte Gregorio, who is a Form 1 student of St. Augustine Girls High School. Good morning. I don't have any children at St. Augustine Girls.
Good morning.
How y'all doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
So just off the bat, let me start with you, Charlotte. What do you think of this entire pandemic and how the school system is working?
The pandemic has brought upon so many difficulties to the school. So I think that the pandemic has definitely affected whether it's primary school or secondary school, but you can see it in the schools, the teachers, and even the students, and everyone presents their own difficulties. So I think it has drastically affected each part that makes the school run as a whole.
And Rain?
I definitely agree with what Charlotte has just said, you know. However, I think these difficulties have really helped us, how do I say, explore new methods of learning and of teaching for the teachers, you know, online schooling for the year and a half. It has really opened a lot of new doors for us, helped us learn about new forums because we have to use them. And, you know, it's been such an experience, but definitely a great one.
Yeah. And you know what, you're right. It's interesting that we've had to learn to use the online platform. For some teachers, it probably was new. For some students, it was new as well. But I think going forward, we'll all be more technologically advanced as a result of this entire pandemic. But in terms of being back out of physical school, where do you all stand on that? Because some students are vaccinated, some are unvaccinated. Are there any fears, or you just understand that this is how things are?
I think I've accepted that this is how things are going to be from now. They're two totally different opinions, and you kind of can't change some people's opinions because some people are very strong in what they think, so you really can't change it. But I think it definitely is a problem that we need to look at because it's very important and serious, mixing anti-vaxxers and vaccinated people.
Definitely, definitely. I agree. It is something that we're just going to have to learn to live with. I mean, that's just the way of the world now. And I agree. They're just, you know, sometimes you can't change people's minds, and that's okay.
But are you comfortable, like when you're in this space and you know this person is vaccinated, or I am unvaccinated, this person is vaccinated, or vice versa, do you feel any kind of discomfort?
I mean, there's always that little fear at the back of my mind that, you know, maybe I don't feel 100% safe all the time. But, I mean, just being back out to school for me is such a pleasure. I mean, I really do enjoy being back to school. And I guess with the social distancing and the sanitization, at least I feel a little more safe knowing that I might be less at risk than if I was unvaccinated.
Right. But let's talk about the fact that whether vaccinated or unvaccinated, anybody can spread the virus.
Yes.
So really, do we really need to have that fear that, okay, is it more if you're vaccinated that I should fear, or if you're not adhering to the public health regulations? Like if you have a friend and that friend isn't washing his or her hand, well, you're just her because you're all-girls school.
Yes.
You know, not washing her hands, you know, not sanitizing, not wearing those masks. You don't think those present more of a challenge than if the person is vaccinated?
I think that an unvaccinated person that is not adhering to COVID protocols can have the same type of effect as someone who is unvaccinated but is following the protocols. I think that because the unvaccination presents you with so many more problems and difficulties in COVID, because when you're not vaccinated, you have more exposure to the virus. So I think that when you're unvaccinated and someone who is vaccinated but is not following the protocols can amount to the same thing, because you're not following the vaccine protocol, the COVID protocols, but you have the vaccine. So that does bring a little bit of comfort and a little more safety. But When you're unvaccinated, but you're still listening to the protocols, maybe it might not be as harmful for you.
Right. Interesting perspective there. Rain?
I have to agree, with what Charlotte is saying, but I do think that probably someone who is not following the protocols might be more of a hazard than someone who is unvaccinated. I really think that unvaccinated persons, once following the protocols, don't really pose that much of a risk. I think maybe they are more at risk because they don't have the extra layer of protection that the vaccine provides us with.
So going forward with this idea now of schools slowly but surely reopening, as in the physical space, and now we're hearing that teachers are saying, well, tutor is saying that they will encourage, voluntary vaccination, but they're not supporting mandatory vaccination. How does that make you feel? Because realistically, is that at this point, there are teachers and students, some vaccinated, some unvaccinated. We don't know who is who. And, at this point, it's saying that teachers should be, but nothing has changed for the students. How does that work out for you both?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we're still fairly young. To have such young people and, such an early stage of their life make a decision like you should or shouldn't be vaccinated, I think it's a lot. Although, it would be great for school to be a safe zone where everyone is vaccinated, I think we can't take education away from people who are unvaccinated,
Charlotte?
I also agree with Rian, because I think that even though merging both unvaccinated and vaccinated is a little risky, I do think that everyone should be exposed to the education, because whether you're unvaccinated or vaccinated, it's still a right that you have. So I think that it's sensible to merge both, but I think they have to just be a little more precaution than if it was fully vaccination.
But the government would say to you that, listen, we're not taking away the right, it's just that you have to learn from home. So how do you feel about that you're not being denied the right to education, but it's that you're separated? At one point we had that. Now we are just rolling back out. But how do you feel about that idea that if you're unvaccinated, you can't be in the physical classrooms?
Honestly, for me, I can speak from personal experience. I have been back out to school physically. And just being in the school environment puts you in a completely different frame of mind. You have that interpersonal relationship with your colleagues and with your teachers, and it really helps you. When you're home, sometimes you can't focus properly because that's your home environment. That's where you're most comfortable, that's where you spend your most time relaxing. So to have to learn from home and to have to engage in online schooling from your bedroom, probably sometimes your living room, it's a bit distracting. You can't exactly focus, you're not in the right frame of mind. So for me personally, I love being back to school, and I feel like I really feel for those who can't be back to school, because it's such a privilege, especially after going through that period of not being able to be there.
Yeah. And do you find that, now where we are with slowly rolling back out, do you find that, students are in a better mental space? Because we heard a lot about, the whole idea of more depression, more anxiety, just as you said, just being cooped up at home. Do you have any experiences, any friends who kind of struggled through this, just being at home and trying to learn from home?
Many of my friends I saw struggle. I saw change in their attitudes, a change in their whole perspective to everything. And I think that the amazing thing with the virus is that we all can relate to each other right now. So I think that I have seen some depression going through, because you have less freedom, you have less ability to go outside and play, go and talk to your neighbor. It's so crazy different from our normal. So I think that we all have had different types of problems with coping, and for my coping mechanism might not be your coping mechanism, but I do think that we depend on each other to kind of cope with it.
I definitely agree, because sometimes you're going through something, and until you see somebody else, you recognize that, well,
yes,
the struggle is not just for you. And, that, as you say, everybody's going through something, but it's 2022 now, and we're going forward. How do you feel about, just schooling education going forward? Has this pandemic changed your perspective, in terms of what education is supposed to be like?
Well, I have seen the pandemic. Yes, it was a challenge, but I'm so grateful to have overcome the hurdle that is COVID-19, and especially at such a transitional period in my life. I'm in Form 4. I have to write CXC next
Yeah.
year. So, I mean, I'm just trying to cope in the best way possible, try and put as much effort as I can into my schoolwork and make the best out of the situation.
Yeah. So you find it a bit kind of a little bit tedious.
I do agree, and I feel that now having COVID being almost over a year, I think almost over 2 years actually, I think that we are now kind of settling and finding the normalcy in this crazy pandemic. So I think that now we're trying to find our groove in the pandemic.
Yeah, you're right. I myself trying to find my whole groove in this pandemic. Not easy, I'll tell you. When we started the show, I was saying that 2021 was one of the craziest years for me. And to include a pandemic into that, it was really, really, really emotionally and mentally difficult for me. So I'm trying to figure out, like, for students, like, how do you all manage? What are some of the things you do to cope? We talk about, coping, but like you said that your coping mechanism might be different from one of your friends, but what do you do to cope?
To cope with the pandemic, what I do is I like to think forward. So I like to think about the end game. So when I do all of my work and my online classes, I think about, let's be positive, because you're stuck in a situation you can't get out and there's nothing you could really do to stop it. So I think about the future. I look for hope of what could be and how it will be when we come out. So I really just look towards a better day, a better
So don't get stuck right here, even though you're going through something.
Yes.
And for you, Rain, how have you coped?
I definitely agree with Charlotte. That is something I've had to remind myself of constantly for the past year and a half, right? That this pandemic, whether it will be over by the time I have exams, I still have to write my exams, But for myself, even before COVID, I loved physical activity, or all of these sports I was involved in. Sailing, swimming, dance. It really brought me a sense of joy, and it helped me shed any excess weight that I, emotional and mental weight, that is, like stress from school and, what's been pent up. It really helped me. It was an outlet for me. After school, I could just go to the studio and dance, and I'd forget about all my problems. That is something that was taken away from me during COVID, and I think a lot of young people can also relate that we don't have that physical outlet anymore to, put us in a different headspace,
No, we've seen decisions being made by the government, by stakeholders regarding what is supposed to happen in schools, who's supposed to be out, who is supposed to be vaccinated and unvaccinated. But does anyone ever talk to the students about what they want and how they feel?
I don't think students' voices are heard enough about this pandemic, because everyone just assumes, oh, they're feeling depressed, oh, they're just struggling, but no one really goes under the surface to find what's really going on. What are the real problems? Is it that they're too tired of being home? Is it that they're missing school? Is it that they're missing friends? Is it that they're missing out on work? So I think that no one really does the deep digging to find out what's really going on, but I think that's a serious topic that needs to be found out about, because many kids are struggling and some people don't even have the courage or the voice to speak out on it. So I do think people who are willing to speak out on it should, because it's a very important topic about kids' mental health. That's why you all
are here, to get the perspective of the students. Because how do you feel about it, Doreen? Do you believe that students get that voice in this pandemic in terms of the decision-making process about what happens to students?
I really don't think so. As much as I would say my teachers have been concerned, and they do find out how we're going, how we're feeling, if we have any ideas and suggestions, but I don't really think that we have that much of a say when it comes to the big decisions.
Right. So then it wasn't your choice whether or not to do online schooling or to go back to the physical classroom. It wasn't your choice as to whether or not you got vaccinated. It wasn't your choice as to how, school is going to be reopened, when it's going to be reopened. But I know you said that, the term in terms of to be vaccinated or unvaccinated, you think it's a big decision for a child to make. So if you had to do it over, would you all take the decision to be vaccinated?
I would definitely take the decision to be vaccinated, because even when it was time to be vaccinated for my first shot, my parents and I sat and talked, and we thought about the real benefits of the vaccine. We didn't think about what was going to happen with it for us, but we thought about the effects that it would have on others. So we thought about my extended family, how it would affect them, because not only is the vaccine helping yourself, it's helping the people around you. So we thought it could benefit many others other than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Would you still take that decision to be vaccinated?
Definitely. I also agree with Charlotte. And one last year, August, when I did take my vaccine, I actually spoke to my mom when I found out. I said, Mom, you know, I really need to take this vaccine, and I'm so glad that I did, and I would definitely do it again, because it's provided me with so many opportunities and so many privileges and things that I didn't have before. And I'm now so grateful for the ability to go into public settings that I didn't have before, the ability to go to school originally when unvaccinated persons weren't at school, the ability to go to my other extracurricular activities in person. You know?
But do you believe that somebody who is unvaccinated should be denied these same privileges?
I mean, I don't think so, but at the same time, the pandemic is fairly new. We're not entirely sure of, you know, all the after effects and what can come in 10 years. We don't know, you know, if we get the vaccine now, how it will affect us later down. If we get the virus now, what the after effects will be in 10 years.
Yeah, you are correct. There's still a lot of unknowns, but all right, we do have to wrap. But Raina, I'll start with you. In terms of advice to the government, to tutor to all these stakeholders, if you had to make a suggestion about what is supposed to happen and what schooling is supposed to look like and how students are to be interacted with, what would you say?
I mean, definitely. I don't think that there is only one correct way to interact with students and one correct way to teach, one correct way to school, but I do think that students' voices definitely need to be heard more. I think we should definitely have a say in such big decisions, especially because they are, you know, affecting our education, and it will affect our lives later on, because education is the key to success.
Yeah, Charlotte?
What I would say is that I think, as Rain said, it's important for us to have a say in it. And I think it's really important to find out about our needs, because we really do need to be heard, and at least what we have to say will be used, and maybe a decision can be made from then. But I really think that our opinions need to be slipped in there as well.
Yeah. All right, ladies, I want to thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. Hopefully for those who are listening, they will take heed and understand that, you know, what they might be doing, you might not feel as if that's what you all need at this time. Not necessarily that something is right or wrong, but that, you know, at this time it may not serve my best interest, you know, as a student, as a child. So Charlotte, Rain, thank you so much for sharing with me this morning. And all the best. Hail up my 2 children for me. Right? And hail up your friends for me. Them that know me. But ladies, thank you so much.